Hey everybody, welcome to Fuller's Fly Tying video number 4. I'm going to continue working with deer hair a little bit in this one. I'm going to demonstrate how to do a deer hair body for some mayflies and a post for hackling around in some of the more common patterns. And I'm also going to do a deer hair wing for an elk hair caddis. I'm going to show a couple different ways to do each one. And I'm also going to show how to select hair for each one, because some of them require some pretty specific things that I think will help out in picking out the right patch of hair. So I hope you guys enjoy it. The first technique I'm going to do is just a wing for an elk hair caddis. Also important for a lot of these bugs, all the ones I'm going to demonstrate today, you're going to need a deer hair stacker. I recommend getting at least one quality stacker. A lot of the cheaper ones that are lightweight have the really light aluminum inserts. Don't seem to work as well in my mind. But for this wing, all you need to do is take a little tiny clump of deer hair. Always want to pull out the excess guard hairs. And if you have a comb and you feel comfortable doing that, you can do that as well. But otherwise, if you need to, just pinch down the tips and pull on the ends like that, and it'll get all that guard hair out. Okay? And then stick it in your stacker. Make sure all that's down in nice and even tips. Then with the hair in your right hand, put it on the fly to measure it out. And on this specific fly, I don't want my tips past the end of the hook. If you have a little too much, and you'll get the feel of that, how much to use on each fly, you can just pull a little bit out right here, and then take your thread and do one loose wrap over, pull straight down, then one more over top of the same spot, straight down again, and a third will cinch it down perfectly tight. What I do is I pull it all back, put a few wraps in front, and then lift these tips up again. And don't go too close to the hook, because you want this to look like a little bit of a head on here, and snip it off. That's going to do is have a wing that lays over top of your body and hackle, and a little tiny head that looks like the head of the caddis. Okay? Take your whip finisher and finish off your bug. Tighten that all down, snip it off. Okay, and that wing is just going to kind of sit upright and back on an angle and look like a natural caddis wing. Okay, that's a really effective pattern. You can tie it in all different colors. I have this one in a light white, which is, I'm trying to imitate a popcorn caddis. We get a good hatch of those on the Asabo River, and so this one's a little lighter than what most of them you can see, or you'll see. But if you put like tan bodies or olive bodies and just vary the sizes, this pattern will mimic just about any caddis hatch you're going to find across the United States. The next technique I'm going to show is using deer hair for a mayfly body and for the post of a parachute style fly. I'm going to go ahead and tie an entire Robert's Drake, because it has both of these in it. It has deer hair for a body and a deer hair post. I showed this technique in one of my previous videos about using moose mane for a tailing material. It makes great tailing material. It's easy to work with. So I'm going to apply that, and I don't want to leave a whole lot of space on this, because I'm going to make it similar to the elk hair caddis I showed. But instead of leaving that little bit of extra bit of a head after cutting the tips off, or the extra deer hair material off, I'm going to try to cut it right down to the base of it and leave room for the post and the hackle, and I'll show all that in just a second. All I'm going to do is cut a clump of this deer hair off, tease out all those guard hairs, and stack it. Feels like I have a little bit too much, so I'm going to pull a little bit out. Once you get used to doing the same fly, that's a point of mine I've made in just about every video, is repetition makes for better flies. I could tell just by holding it that I had a little bit too much in there, so I removed some of that. And I want to kind of measure this out with my hook shank. You're going to see once you tie the same fly a few times, you know, where in relationship to the end of the hook you want this. And I'm going to want this just past where my tips are, just past the end of the hook. Again, I'm going to do 2 wraps and pull straight down. And it's going to flare those tips out. And I'm going to put 2 more wraps on just to hold everything in place. And then I'm going to work my thread backward down the hook, holding on that deer hair as I work it down. Now I want to be working that deer hair down over the hook shank, otherwise the bottom of my fly is going to have exposed hook. So if I'm not pressing down, working that deer hair over the hook, I'm going to have stuff on the bottom of it that doesn't look like the top, and it's not going to look natural. When I get to the very back, I'm going to put 2 wraps over themselves and pull down. It's going to flare those tips out just a little bit. Then I'm going to take all this extra stuff, and instead of clipping it like I did with the elk hair caddis, I'm going to put my scissors right behind it and just shave it down. And that's going to kind of taper that down a little bit, and it's also going to bring that right close to where my thread wraps were. Then I'm going to bring my thread back up, making that segmented looking body. And now I'm ready to put my post on. Now my post is deer hair also. This white deer hair. I clip off a piece of that. Tease out the extra guard hairs. Throw it in the stacker. Again, if you have any questions on how I did something or what I was doing in one step or another, just shoot me an email. I'll try to get them answered the best I can. And for the wing, you always kind of want to have a measuring point. And for the wing, this is just past where I tied off the tips. So just past those, and I'm going to do the same thing. Apply it the same way as I did the elk hair caddis and the beginning of the body. 2 wraps, straight down. Another couple wraps to hold everything on. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Pull these straight up and push my scissor tips in between the 2 segments, and it's going to shear that off nice and tight.